Hello and welcome. My name is Tara, intuitive healer, teacher guide, specializing in shadow work. In this video, I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different than what I've been talking about recently, and that is our body and our health and wellness and how we can increase longevity and live a healthy and fulfilled life. Health is one of the main aspects of living a fulfilled life. Now, I talk a lot about manifestation, law of attraction, energy, shadow work, our subconscious, going into the depths within ourselves to heal and to manage our energy. But our body is extremely important, and it's one of these areas that we cannot overlook. And remember, everything is connected. If our health is not well, then we're not going to perform at our optimal self, and we're not going to live a life of complete fulfillment. So if anything is out of balance within ourselves, then there's going to be some kind of repercussion for that. And if we're not feeding our body with the right fuel, then there's going to be some kind of outcome, right? So it can lead to health issues. It can slow us down. It can also interrupt sustained energy within ourselves, which I'll get to in a moment. So in this particular video, I'm going to talk about my top 5 picks to avoid putting in the body. And for myself, what led me to being very health conscious. Truthfully, I'm very lucky that I was raised in a family dynamic where we had a garden, we had a couple acres, a very secluded piece of property where, we lived off the land a bit to some extent. I had one parent that liked junk food. The other parent was very health conscious. So as a child, of course, I liked junk food and I liked sneaking into the pantry and finding hidden sweets and things. But I feel that's normal for a child. But as I grew up, my diet wasn't very good. I actually ended up going to the other extreme of wanting to indulge in fast foods and unhealthy foods because I was deprived of that in early childhood. I was, and this is going back into, it's going back into the 90s, early 90s, when I was put on a no sugar diet. Because when I was very young, I would react. I was very sensitive to sugar. So I would react in hyperactive ways when I would eat sugar. So I was not allowed actually to eat sugar, even though I loved it. So I was given food alternatives that were really not that good. They have improved a lot now since then. But when I moved out of home, I definitely did indulge. I indulged in everything that I couldn't eat when I was at home. So I almost went into the other extreme, but that ended up changing over time, which I'm very grateful for. And I feel like I went back to my roots of eating pure food, eating from the land, eating as whole as I can, without the preservatives and without the additives. And so later in life, I became a competitive cyclist. And I've mentioned this before in my other videos. And I trained with an Olympic coach. I knew a lot of naturopaths as well and nutritionists. So I've taken a lot of information from bits and pieces, my own research as well. What happened when I was a cyclist, and I've mentioned this again in other videos, I sustained a very serious head injury. And this basically put me into a self-discovery mode. And I did actually consult with a lot of neuroscientists and brain specialists. And I was very fascinated as to how I could heal myself and what I could do to improve my health and well-being, because it was really going downhill and I was suffering from a lot of anxiety, very strong depression. I was having panic attacks, things that were very strong. It was a lot of energies were very out of control and very unpredictable within myself. So I had a really hard time maintaining balance with the energy within myself. And I was addicted to coffee also. So I was using a lot of stimulants to keep active and to keep performing. So my energy was so out of whack, and it did affect my mind. It did affect my mental performance. It did affect my energy levels. It did affect my mood. Of course, the stress and anxiety was exacerbated. So when we focus on our food, it does regulate our system. When we really dial things in, it creates a really great balance within our body, right? So I'm going to give my 5 top tips as to what I feel if we could avoid these 5 things, we will definitely create a positive impact within our body and within our own energetic rhythm, if you will. So the first one, and this is not in order, but this is the first one here. I just have it at the top of my list. It's not the most extreme, but they're all equal. And the first one I'm going to start off with is sugar. And sugar can be very addictive. Sugar is in many, many foods. So also foods like starchy foods or things like white bread, white rice, potatoes even can turn into glucose. So we also have to be very careful of how much we are eating of things that are starchy. So just be aware of things, and also like pastas, they can turn into glucose. So if we're not burning it off, if we're not active, then we have to be really careful with what we're eating. And that's another thing I should have mentioned. If you are semi-active, or if you're not really active, then it's really important to be aware of what you're putting in your body. When you are active, when you're maybe an athlete, or when you're an endurance athlete, you can get away with a few things, even though it's not really recommended to eat a lot of foods that cause maybe inflammation, for example, because you still have to recover, which I'll get to in just a moment. But sugar is one of the main ones to be aware of, also too, for inflammation. And so when we eat inflammatory foods, it does cause a lot of inflammation in our body. And so sugars is one of them. And sugars can be very addicting. So white sugars, fructose, pop is really bad for the body, is really bad for the gut, and it's really bad for the brain. And these are all sugars are really bad for the brain in excess amounts. So if you have a sweet tooth, I'm sorry to say, you might want to find a substitute. And I did have a sweet tooth. So I ended up substituting my sweet tooth habits just a little bit. I don't have an excessive sweet tooth, but I love chocolate. If you like sweets, try to substitute it with things like maybe honey, maple syrup, and dark chocolate is really good too. So you can find alternatives. And what happens when we eat really strong or potent foods, our taste buds get thrown off. So when we go into eating healthy and natural, sometimes there's an adjustment period that needs to happen because we're used to a certain flavor or we're used to a certain taste. So we need to allow for a time to readjust. When our taste buds start to adjust to natural foods, then we start to actually taste more. We taste more flavors. Our taste buds almost become desensitized in a way when we're putting in a lot of artificial foods and really strong flavors, or things like sugars and salts, like very high levels, artificial flavors as well. So we start to lose touch with our senses for our taste, right? So when we start to reconnect with our taste buds, if you will, our taste sense, then we start to taste more flavors. So this is a really great exercise too. If you find yourself with a sweet tooth, maybe try to cut out for a little bit and just go into natural foods and natural flavors and see what happens. There will be an adjustment needed, because if we're eating maybe not so good foods, then we're going to be used to those flavors. They're not necessarily good for us though, right? So there's going to be that period. I think it's 60 days to introduce a new habit. So it does take time. And I find that food is the most difficult habit to introduce or to break. So give yourself the time that you need to really invest into your health, because it is going to be the best investment you can make, trust me. So sugars, white sugars, fructose, corn syrup, really, really bad for the system. Do not read the labels. Pop is awful. I'm going to put pop in that category as well, is really bad for the system. So pop I feel should be illegal. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. So the next one is going to be tap water. Even though water does have a certain level of filtration, it's not totally filtered. Even where I was living previously, we had fluoride in the water. So this is not exactly, and I know it's small traces, but I'd rather have pure water and have zero traces of this, as zero as I can get, and drink that rather than have some traces in it. And especially, I drink a lot of water. I do recommend drinking a lot of water during the day. So if you're drinking high volumes of water, you want the best water. And especially for washing vegetables, fruits and vegetables, and putting water into maybe foods that you're making, try to buy a filtration system for your water at home. And try not to buy bottled water, but you can buy portable filters with to-go cups, right? To-go containers. So that is going to be the best option for you. Again, water is our source, and we need water. And I would recommend also drinking a lot of water a day. I don't know the exact volume, for everyone's probably different, but I drink water constantly all day, and it's really good for the body. All right, the next one is going to be preservatives and artificial flavoring and coloring. Really bad and really bad for the brain. There have been studies actually on dementia, how preservatives have actually affected the brain, can cause dementia. Now, there are studies on this, especially artificial coloring and flavoring. It's chemical, it's not natural. And so when we're eating this, and I know sometimes, again, back to the taste buds, it can taste really good because it is a flavor that really hits our senses, right? Because it's not natural. And so we can throw our taste sense off because of these unnatural flavors. But again, remember, they're chemicals. They're not a substance that we're used to digesting. And really think about your body as being an engine. Your body is performing for you. You're going to want to fuel it with the highest nutrients possible so you can perform to your optimal. And these artificial flavorings and colorings and preservatives really do take a toll on the body. Okay, so the next one I'm going to throw in, I might get some hate for this one, but it's going to be coffee. I used to drink coffee every day. I used to drink coffee maybe more than just once a day. I'd have double Americano black. I loved dark, strong coffee. And there were days I couldn't live without it. And that's a problem. When you know that you cannot function without something, that's something that needs to be looked at. So anytime we need something, we feel like we can't work or function without it, that's a problem, right? So it gives you an indicator of there could be an addiction, there could be this crutch that your body is used to and it needs. It doesn't need coffee. You don't need coffee. You have more than enough energy to sustain as much work as you want throughout the day. All right. And the more that you are in alignment with your internal rhythm, the better advantage you're going to have for performing optimally. And it's mind, body, soul, right? So it's everything connected. And when we're drinking coffee, it really throws our system off. So any kind of stimulant you want to stay away from, which leads me to my next one. The final one, I know it's going to hurt, is alcohol. And for myself, well, I've been drinking for a long time. I've definitely slowed down my alcohol consumption to social events, and that's okay. And remember, some of these things, I want to say that everything that I've mentioned so far, I would say try your best as possible to scratch it off your list. But certain things you can have in moderation. It's not going to harm you. All right. So same with alcohol. If you have it once in a while, it's not going to harm you. But the same as for coffee, if it is an addiction or if it's something that you need or something that you are drawn to or you have to have, then there's something there that needs to be addressed. That addiction or that need or that hook needs to be addressed for you to let it go, because there's something on a subconscious level that is pulling you towards that need or that want for that particular product, right? So if there's the need for drinking, if there is the crutch, then there's something deeper that needs to be looked at. It's not the actual product itself. And that is a very numbing agent. Alcohol is very numbing. It dims our energy and it creates brutal hangovers for the next day. So if you are working, if you are manifesting, you're wanting to create a successful business or life or fulfilled life, constantly being hungover is not good. And I don't know, you can look at a lot of corporations, a lot of businesses, and the culture within corporations that have a lot of alcohol, have a lot of partying. How do companies actually function that way? And I was part of that culture, so I'm reflecting on what I experienced as well. But you can have this once in a while. It's not going to kill you. Just be responsible. And, I always, if you want to have fun in a social event, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's interrupting your work and if it's interrupting your sleep and if it's interrupting your moods, because what happens after drinking alcohol is you can become very moody. It does throw our system off. It does affect our hormones. It does affect our sleep, and it affects our brain, right? So our ability to concentrate and function and to catch details and to be in alignment with our highest self and to channel information and creative insight. So when we are hungover, we're actually dimming our light and we're lowering our vibration. And so again, like I said, once in a while, there's nothing wrong with it. But if it is a regular thing, then there's something on a subconscious level that may need to be healed and resolved. Okay, so that you can break that chain, you can break that habit. So those are the 5 top tips. If you can manage those, if you can identify them and work with them and try to move it out of the body, out of the system, then you're going to find increased energy. You're going to find improved moods. You're going to find improved concentration. You might even lose some weight, or you might even find yourself to feel more fit or to feel more functional. These all do play into benefits in our whole body, within our body, our mind, especially the cognitive side is really important, and our energy levels, right? So if you have any questions or if you have any comments, please leave them below. I love hearing from you, and I wish you all the best with your journey and beyond. And I will be seeing you again very soon. Take care.